taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the GMC Acadia. So this walkthrough is going to show you everything that you need to know. First thing I'm going to point out is that the steering wheel inside the vehicle is heated, and you could turn the heated steering wheel on or off this way. And then there's the power telescoping steering wheel. So just down by your left knee, you can move it in, out, up, and down to find that perfect position for you. Once you have that set up, if your steering wheel is power, set up your driver's seat the way that you'd like to, along with your side view mirrors. And then from there, you could then push, set, and then either 1, 2, or 3 for it to remember your own personal profile. So if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, you can have everything set up to remember you, hop in, push either 1, 2, or 3 to return it back to your default instead. So really useful setting. So many things to know. Sticks inside of the vehicle are very interesting. So you've got your left stick here, which is going to be for your blinkers. You can flash out your high beams, but you can't permanently lock them out until you get out of the auto light mode. So down by the right side there, so bottom part of the screen, there's a little icon that you can push there, so a light bulb. To turn the lights off, you can go into an auto mode, and then there's also an upper light mode. And when you push that, you can then pull in towards you, or push away, I should say, to turn the high beams on, so lock them out, pull in towards you in order to turn them off. Because if you're just in the regular mode, you go to push away, it's not going to lock out the high beams. You can still flash them, but in the auto mode, what happens is if the vehicle recognizes the high beams are needed, it automatically turns them on. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to dim them before turning them right back on again. So really useful from that perspective. It's just that if you want them permanently locked on, you have to be out of the auto mode. And with this left stick, you've got a few different buttons. So you could button push twice here in order to get your wiper fluid going. You can adjust your wiper speed here. And then for the rear wipers, you've got a few options here to adjust the wipers on or off, but you can also push down in order to get that rear wiper fluid going as well. So it's button push here to get the front wiper fluid going, and then slide up or down this way in order to get the rear wiper fluid going instead. And then the shifter is its own interesting thing. So when I first hopped in, I was looking for the hand shifter down on the right side. It's done right on the stalk instead. So foot on the brake, and then you're going to pull in towards you, and that's going to shift you into neutral. You could then pop up to go into reverse, pop back down in order to go to neutral or drive, whatever the case may be. And then there's a button on the tip of the stick in order to put you into park. It's straightforward. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it's really straightforward in order to be able to use. And then you can see there. So I've got the option here with the front and the reverse park sensing system. So you can see all those sensors there, and it lets you know how close or far you are away from obstacles that are in front of you. It's kind of neat. You're going to find a few different controls to the left side of the steering wheel as well. So you can turn on your parking brake easily that way if you want to. You can adjust your different drive modes this way. You can toggle all-wheel drive on automatically if you want to, or drop into that two-wheel drive mode instead. Auto start-stop, so that's the one that's potentially going to kill power to the engine if you stop for an extended period of time. So you can toggle that on-off. And then you can also adjust the brightness of the cluster screen there as well. So later on at night, you want to dim it out, you've got the flexibility to do it. Then you've got a series of different buttons that are available, like so many buttons. Along the left-hand side is going to be for cruise control. So you've got your regular adaptive cruise control is available here, but then you've also got the Super Cruise feature, and that's this one here. And the Super Cruise is going to be full hands-free driving on the highway. It takes the adaptive cruise level up a notch. It's amazing. So the basics here. So you can toggle the regular cruise control system on or off, and then you can temporarily cancel. You can push up to resume. You can hit the brake to cancel, push up to resume. Once you get up to the speed that you like, or as you start traveling, you can push down and then either increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time. You can also push and hold in order to go up or down 5, so it'll be to the nearest 5 or to the nearest 0 by pushing and holding up. So if you're at 47 kilometers an hour, push and hold up, it'll take you to 50. Push and hold down, it'll take you to 45, and then down to 40, 35, etc. And then from there, you can also go into a low mode, so low gear. So what you're going to do, if you have yourself in drive, you can then push this in order to go to your low gear instead. So useful if you're going uphill, towing a boat, pulling a boat out of water, whatever the case may be. And then this one is going to be your Super Cruise, and that's the one that's fully hands-free driving. Once you have that system turned on, the steering wheel here goes green. You'll notice green all throughout the cluster screen as well. It's such a cool feature. But if you want to walk through and actually using the adaptive cruise, including the distance indicators for the gap adjustment and things like that, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a little walkthrough explaining how that's done and showing you a live demonstration as well. Along the right-hand side, you've got a series of other buttons that are available. So this one is going to be a voice command prompt. So you'd be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, you can navigate using your voice, and so many other things. I love it. And honestly, it's based off of Google. So it's a very smart system from that perspective. It can control most settings that you're going to find inside of the infotainment system. So adjusting climate, turning on the heated steering wheel, things like that. From there, you've also got your audio sources. So essentially going to be all of your available sources. So AM, FM, Sirius XM, things like that. So you could hit the voice command prompt to change to whatever station. You could also hit this in order to move between all of the options here. Woo! And then from there, all you're doing, so pushing there, and then you're just pushing this middle button. So we're essentially just going up and down here. And then once you find that one, the source that you like, push in the middle in order to adjust it out that way. Relatively straightforward using this. And then from there, you've also got a few other options. So this, no phone currently connected, but you can answer or hang up on a phone call this way if you want to. From there, you've also got your heated steering wheel button. And then you've got this. Oh, look at this. So you've got the option of changing out to different views. So there are 3 unique views that are available. So full mapping cluster, but I mean, that looks so damn cool. You've got this setup instead. So you've got all of your highway driving safety features that would show up there as you go. So if you have adaptive cruise control turned on, things like that, as you move, that'll look different. And then you've got this, which I would say is more like a traditional setup instead. So you've got different options to choose from. So what we're going to do, I'll zoom you in, but before I do, there are some buttons behind the steering wheel here as well. And that's changing between all of our available presets. Along the right-hand side there, you've also got the option of going up and down in order to adjust your volume. So this way is going to change your presets along the left. Along the right is to be able to adjust your volume instead. And then you've also got paddle shifters. So your minus on the left-hand side and your plus on the right-hand side. If you've never used paddles, they are an absolute blast. But if you want to walk through a demonstration of how paddle shifters actually work when you want to use them, check down in the description of this video for a walkthrough. It's done on the Ford Mustang, but the principles are the exact same regardless of the car that you're in. And then there's the cluster screen and so many things inside of this screen as well. So it depends on the layout that you've got, so you can cycle between. But if we go into this main layout here, you've got your current direction that you're facing, current outside temperature, current date and time, your fuel level, what mode you're in here. So currently in 2-wheel drive, but you've got the option. There's a button, you may not be able to see it, right here, there we go. So you can adjust between different modes. And when you adjust that way, it's going to play around with what's going on inside of the screen. So you can see here, adjusting, there's an off-road mode, snow, ice, tow haul, etc. So normal is exactly that, but when you get into sport, it's going to hold on to the RPMs a little bit more. So rather than shifting at, let's say, 2,000 RPM, it might shift at 3,000 or 4,000 RPM instead. Versus when you get into something like the off-road mode or snow and ice, it's going to automatically throw you into all-wheel drive instead, and it'll play with things like traction control, stability control, and things like that. But if you want a full walkthrough on the infotainment system there, you'll find that in the description of this video. But back to the steering wheel and cluster here. So you can see there, because of the mode that I've chosen, I'm currently in 4-wheel drive instead. And then if we go into just normal again, it drops us back into that 2-wheel drive. It's kind of neat. There's a fuel gauge that's done a different way. So you've got either your miles or kilometers there versus your traditional gauge that way. Your total, oh, you see that there? There we go. Your total odometer along the very bottom there. What gear you're currently in, so whether that's park, reverse, neutral, drive, whatever the case may be, or your low gear. And then that shows up because we've got the forward and reverse park sensing system. You can see there what gear you're currently in as well, and then your current speed as you go to drive. And then along the right side, it's also going to be what's currently going on with your audio source. So as you jump between different sources, you're going to have a slightly different look. Ah, yeah, nothing available there. But you can go through all of your different presets this way as well. So it's pretty straightforward actually utilizing this system. One other thing I'll point out is that you've also got this, and these are essentially going to be cameras that watch your eyes as part of the Super Cruise feature here. So you have to make sure that you're actually paying attention to the road. You can't be snoozing, whatever the case may be, or else the system's just not going to work. but I love all of the different views. The map and cluster one, like full map and cluster, I think looks so cool. But you've got different options here. And then again, it's just a slightly different layout in comparison. So you can kind of pick and choose, but you can't really customize the screen outside of this. Now there's one other thing that I'm going to point out, and that's inside of the screen here. So if you go into your vehicle status along the very bottom, that's going to give you a series of options here. So you can zoom in to individual things. So if you wanted to see where your tire pressure is, you can look at maintenance information. So you see your tire pressure, oil life, engine air filter, things like that. But you can push any of these and you can add it to the driver display as well. So if you hit add to display, it adds it there for you. And you can also remove from the display as on top of that. So you've got a few different options here, and then cycling back out into your gauges. So you've got your transmission fluid, oil, coolant temperature, things like that. You can again push any of these into the driver display, so into the cluster screen. There's also your trip counter. So you've got a few different trip counters available. So you've got your total trip, so your trip 1 info versus trip 2, what fuel economy are you currently getting, your current trip, so that's from when the vehicle was turned off and then back on again. That's your current trip. So because I'm doing this video, I've traveled 0 distance and nothing for fuel economy. Total fuel economy right now, since the total reset, has been best at 8.1 liters per 100. But if you tap here, you could then add your trip counter to the display as well. So we're going to go add to driver display, and you can see your trip counter there, remove from the display in order to go that route. So it's kind of neat that you've got that available. So you can really kind of customize that left panel to make it your own, and then you can reset. So you've got your trip 1 versus trip 2 counter. If you just hit a reset there, do you want to reset? Yes. It zeroed it back out for us instead. And then, like I said, there are so many different things, so many different settings and options and things like that you're going to find inside of the screen. But like I said, full walkthrough there is down in the description of this video. The other thing to point out, are you going to be able to see it okay? Yes, you can. It's going a little bit wonky right now, but there's a little head-up display. Along the bottom of the screen, you'll also see this little toggle. And when you push that, that's going to give you a few other options. But the one we're looking for here is the head-up display. So you can toggle the head-up display off completely if you want to. And then you can also adjust a few things. So you can adjust the brightness. I always recommend maximum brightness. And then you can also adjust the height as well as the rotation. So if you want to make it a little bit easier to see based off of how you sit, you've got the flexibility to do it. So if we look through, you can see there the flickering has kind of gone away there because I've adjusted the brightness. You want to go maximum brightness though, and that's just going to make it way easier to see. One thing to consider with the head-up display as well is that with polarized sunglasses, it's next to impossible to see the head-up display, even on maximum brightness. It's very, very subtle, but unfortunately you can't really see it. You can adjust the height there if you want to, so bring it up, drop it down, whatever the case may be, and then rotate it in order to really make it your own. So I know that is quite a little bit of information, but that's everything that you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the GMC Acadia.